Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. Can you believe it? Every single video game? Are you prepared to join me and see the newest video game releases in the beginning of December 1982? We've been playing every video game in order that they've been coming out, and the last game we played was on the Vectrex. It was Solar Quest, and now everything has led up to this moment. Our next video game release is really not too exciting. This is Space Mission. Sorry to get your hopes up. For the Arcadia 2001 by Emerson. If you've not heard of this console, that means you probably haven't tuned in on our show, because we've already seen a few games by this system. This shouldn't be confused with Super Space Mission that we saw on the ZX81 and ZX Spectrum and Dragon 32 home computers. This is a whole new Space Mission. This game is console exclusive to the Emerson Arcadia 2001, and it marks the 39th game we've seen so far for this console. This is available in all the regions that this console came out in, except the Tunics. Sorry, Tunics fans, all three of you, you never got Space Mission. Maybe you got it ported somewhere else. This is a pretty rare case. We're actually looking at an actual scan of the box. Usually on the Emerson Arcadia, it's fabrications, reconstructions. This is a real Arcadia 2001 box. Ooh, look, a real spine. Soak it in. Usually it's something fake, but look, we have the real back of the box too. One controller, you got to have your overlays on these controllers as well. It's the age of overlays still. And it says it's fun for the astronauts, in quotes. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe it sold the game. What other artwork do we have for Space Mission? This one was ported over by UA Limited. It's the 35th time we've seen this company, and they've done pretty much all the ports of all the games for this home console. This is a home console that I didn't know too much about until this show. Now we've become a lot more accustomed to what it is. It does have the numpad overlay similar to the Intellivision. You can see a little digital joystick down at the bottom, and it has the start option and buttons similar to the Atari home system. And there's the cartridge, actual scan of the cartridge too, a little bit wider than some of the other fabrications we've seen. But Space Mission got some nice artwork. It's got classic artwork that we've seen on the Arcadia 2001. It looks pretty good. And you can see the back of the cartridge has the same information they gave on the back of the box. Are there any Arcadia fans out there? Show of hands. If you're an Arcadia fan, some people aren't even from this console. They might be in other regions too. So let's take a look at the manual. The real manual for Space Mission. Again, the artwork's pretty good. Very generic, though. Feels like I'm playing a game from the 70s, like a space game. This manual is for the MPT system, so it's not even the Emerson Arcadia system. A lot of the games we played, the scans aren't even online. You cannot find them. People have been taking a scan they bought from eBay and then just typing it up. We need physical scans. So we'll breeze by the table of contents. Your mission is to restore the space station which has been destroyed. You are in a race against time as your mission must be accomplished before the space storm closes in. Launch a drone ship to rebuild the space station, but watch out for enemy fire. Destroy the alien spaceships by firing laser missiles from your command ship. So the aim of the objective is to rebuild the space station with your drone ships before the space storm arrives. 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes, so we got a time constraint for the game. The mission is accomplished. Points are awarded for building the space station and the time remaining, so do it fast. It shows you how to get started, including making sure you plug in the antenna cable. Anybody remember doing that on your home console? And then putting the cartridge in? Yeah, just like that. That's the cartridge for the MPT, which is, again, is a Emerson Arcadia or Arcadia region that's not from North America. And then we have the hand controllers. How do you move around? Use that joystick and make sure you slide this overlay in, which I'm wondering, is the overlay separate? Because the manuals we've seen have the overlay like this, and I'm wondering if people cut out the overlay when they misplaced them. So there's the inlay. Start the game. You can begin. I don't believe there's any options. Yeah, there's nothing. All you do is you just go in the game. The controls are pretty simple. You have fire buttons to discharge laser missiles toward your targets. There's a great screenshot of what the lasers look like. Then you can launch the drone ship button, which is launched when you press the command ship button and it takes off. And then now the laser missiles are harmless to drone ships. So I mean, you're really just moving the ship around. Then you have the load and unload buttons, which are ways to move the the main ship around, and then steer your drone ship by moving it around, and then you have the scan and buttons to review your score, alien spaceships. It also tells you how much time before the storm arrives. The space station has to be built to the correct pattern. Oh, so memorize this. That's the way the spaceship is supposed to look. 4 different parts, I believe. You steer the command ship with the joystick and bring them into view, and the game is over when your mission is accomplished or the space storm arrives. So it's not a score attack game. Most of the console games are. So I give it 1 point, half a point for originality. You can see the game display, score. You got to know what the high score is so you can go for the high score. And then it tells you what your space mission is accomplished at the end. All right, and then we don't really need the operation flow diagram. All right, let's go pop in Space Mission and see what it's all about by UA Limited, released by Emerson at the beginning of December 1982. Ooh, hear the sound. All right, it was building up like it was going to play something from Star Trek, you know, the beginning, but this is all we got. Now it sounds more like we flatlined at the hospital. That's the opening sound. Your first experience with Space Mission is the flatline. All right, so it's single player only. I'm pushing option and select and nothing's happening. All you can do on the first part is just go start and we are in. So the game is in a first person perspective. As I move the joystick around, you can see I have my lasers that shoot down at the bottom. I'm getting minimal sound coming from the game. And yeah, we've heard that most annoying noise before on Chronologically Gaming. So this is a way to blow up the other ships, the yellow ships that are flying around. We want to get the command ship assembled, though. So what I'm going to do is I actually want to see someone explode and what the sound effects are like. But it's like the enemies are moving away from me. It's very bizarre for the control scheme. It is a first-person perspective. Oh, gosh. The whole screen flashes. Let me do it again. Come here. Oh, see, it doesn't let me go by. All right, so what do we need to do? We need to launch that command ship. Very cool. And then I'm controlling the command ship. Check it out. All right, do I have a score display or something of that nature? Let's see if I can pull up the scan screen. I don't think so. Yeah, it's not showing me that. But let's go ahead and pick up some of the pieces and put them together. This looks like the front of the ship, I believe. So you select it using the number pad, you pick up a piece, and then you drop it down, just like that. So you're supposed to be assembling the ship while also, oh, I missed him, destroying things. So it's a very weird perspective because the command ship, the red ship that I'm moving around, I can control freely, but it has no shot. I'm still firing from the first-person perspective. You can see my lasers there. So it's almost like it's a first person, but also I'm controlling from a side view. It's different. I'll give it that. All right, let's see if we can make our way around. We got to assemble this ship because the time is running out. All right, and then we get the other piece over here. I believe this is the one on the end, if I'm following the directions carefully. Oh, did it do it? It did it! And there you go. Our space mission is accomplished. Our time left, oh wow, we were pretty close to having time over. And then there's the score. And then once this is done and the game ends like this, there really isn't a gameplay loop. What you get here for your score is the end. Because if I try to push any buttons or action buttons or continue with anything on the number pad, there's nothing you can do. You have to use the console and push start or begin a new game. So I'm going to push reset again, and this is how the game's played. You just try to get the fastest score assembling the ship. Wow, the flashing is crazy. But we go ahead and launch our command ship and keep going. So this one's pretty nice because it has what we refer to as space combat elements. It's the 39th video game that is a space combat game. You know, first-person perspective, shooting things up like this. And so the main mechanic is something we've seen plenty of times before. This is the 12th game we've seen that's a space combat style game on home consoles. This is the first time that the Arcadia home console has had space combat or a first-person perspective combat. So this little laser shooting out, we've seen that, you know, on consoles for quite a long time. Usually these this style of games are combined with strategy, like we've seen with Star Raiders style games. Other home console examples of games that are like this space combat, are games like Cosmic Conflict that we've seen on the Video Pack and the Odyssey 2. Star Voyager is what we've seen on the Atari 2600. Galactic Space Wars we've seen for the Fairchild Channel F. Outer Space, and then later called Starship, on the Atari 2600. Outer Space Combat is what it's called on the VC4000. Space Battle is another space combat game on the Intellivision that's later renamed to Space Attack on the Atari 2600. And it's just first-person perspective shooting like this. This does have the time constraint element to it, and it does use digital joystick. It's got the interesting perspective for our ship. I wanted everyone to see what it looks like when you run out of time and the space storm comes up. So I'm just wasting time instead of assembling my ship. Actually, I don't think that would work. Can I just drop it? I can just drop it in mid-space? Okay. Go ahead and put it there. Pick them up here, and I'll just let the storm consume us. It should be coming any moment now. Wait for it. This video game does offer a transport element, picking up things and so forth. We've seen a few games that do that. The element, there we go, Space Storm arrived, mission failed. And we're getting absorbed by the space storm. And someone brought up in the chat, it looks more like a tech demo. Yeah, it doesn't have the level loop or the classic arcade gaming loop that we've seen with other games. This was actually in the commercial for the Bandai Arcadia, because that command ship approaching, this screen right here, they put that in the commercial because it does look pretty impressive. It reminds me of, in the early 70s, arcade games that had a different view or mode to go into the main game. But once you get into the game, you can kind of see it's lacking. This whole game is encompassed on a 4 kilobyte cartridge, 4 kilopower. So this system in this game is the same size as most standard Atari 2600 cartridges. The main element that this game has going for it that's different or better than just a space combat game is the ability that you're picking up and assembling something. It's very simple though, very primitive considering the other things we've seen for home consoles, specifically on the Atari. But it has that going for it at least. As far as space combat style games, you look at this laser shot from the first-person perspective, and you look at the explosion, you're like, this is pretty bad. It's really not that bad. We've played other space combat games on home consoles that have even more to be desired, so this is not bad as something like Star Wars that we've seen for the RCA Studio 2 console. All right, so there you go. That's our taste of Space Mission on the Emerson Arcadia 2001, and at this point of the show, now we get to rate the game. Of all the games we've seen on all home consoles up to this point, what would you give Space Mission? Would you say this is a broken game based on everything you could play on home consoles? You'd rate it somewhere in the 1-star range. If you think this is pretty bad, a bad game on all home consoles, you'd be somewhere in the 2-star range. If you think it's pretty average for everything you could play across all home consoles, it'd be somewhere in the 3-star range. If you think it's above average, excellent. A really good game, you'd be somewhere in the 4-star range. And if you think this is one of the best games you could play across all home consoles, you'd be somewhere in the 5-star range. Looking over the chat, I got a 2.5 star from James. Marshall saying 2 stars. Brad saying 2. So Brad saying 2 tops. I actually would agree. I would say this is a 2-star or a bad game. That element of putting something together, though, has a different part of a challenge, and then having a second screen is interesting. So I actually wouldn't call it bad. I'm going to bump it to 2.5 stars. That's like a max rating, maybe a generous rating. But it is something that was apparently in Japan something that sold the console, from what I've heard. Space Mission was popular because it wasn't just shoot 'em up. It was you had a mission, I guess, to complete. All right, after Space Mission, what's our next video game release? We're going to see another new game for the Emerson Arcadia 2001. This is Space Squadron. Let's check it out together. And that's the box that we're used to seeing. It's not a real scan. It's a fabrication that they put together for us. This one's another console exclusive for the Emerson Arcadia 2001, marking the 40th game we've seen for this home console. This is available on the MPT-03, the Bandai Arcadia, the Hanimex, HMG 2650, and the Schmid TVG 2000. Any Schmid fans? No? I didn't think so. But the front of the box has what looks like X-Wing. It's another Star Wars clone. And look in the back. Is that Battlestar Galactica? Fantastic. When we flip it over in the back, you can see it's something that someone put together. It's not even the real back of the box. but we'll take whatever we can get from the internet. What other artwork do we have for Space Squadron? Oh, a real scan. So this, I believe, is either the manual or the front of the box from the MPT system. You can see down at the bottom, MPT-03. And the artwork's different. Still very sci-fi futuristic. Excellent. Besides that, we have the full scan of the entire map of the game. Right here is the whole map of the game. Kind of giving you a preview of what we're about to get into. And there's the system itself, if you remember. So technically, this game that we're about to see is not available for this home console that was in North America. The Arcadia 2001 is one of the regions, but it's really only available for those regions that I mentioned earlier. And there's the example of what the cartridge would look like, depending on the region. You never really know. And there's the example of the screenshot. The manual we have is not even the real manual. This is actually documentation taken from the Leisure Vision, which is the version that was available in Canada. And they say that the Leisure Vision Arcadia system. It explains the cartridge game instructions and how to get started, and then tells you what the game's all about. The purpose of the game is to score as many points as possible. I haven't heard that one before. Points are achieved when the starfighter destroys mutants and aliens. Only 3 starfighters are provided. The player controls the motion of the space fighter, moving it up and down with a joystick. So it's very, very easy controls. They don't really have to explain anything to us. You're supposed to destroy mutants with your laser. Mutants appear at the top of the screen, reflected by miniaturized scene at the top of the screen, and you shoot with the trigger, and that's it. That's all we have for instructions. It's way too simple. Let's pop in that cartridge and see what really is going on with Space Squadron, released in the beginning of December 1982. This one's another one by UA Limited, ported over, and they've done most of the ports for this console. The 36th time we've seen this company. It's another game that's single player only, so you only need one joystick to plug in, and now I can actually push the option button on the console. Oh, now it sounds like there's an issue with my antenna for my television. Can everyone hear that? We'll start with Space Squadron level 1, and then push start, ready, set, go. No multiplayer options. I push the button, and now I am in. Oh, very nice. We're shooting them up. So I already gave you the full map of the entire game. Yikes. This looks really familiar. I think we've seen something like this already. So I'm just flying around, very much Defender-ish style shoot 'em up. I'm able to scroll left and right. Freely, enemies coming at me. Sound effects are actually pretty good for this console. It still, in my opinion, doesn't hold a candle to the sounds we've heard on the Atari 2600. Oh, that's it? Am I game over? I'm trying different things and nothing's happening. All right, we'll go ahead and hit start again. Reset from the beginning. Notice that we didn't have anything. It just told it has a high score, like a temporary high score at the top that's keeping, which is kind of nice, but it's so fast. And there is no element for Defender like rescuing people. It's just dodge bullets and then rack up as many points as you can. And I just realized, look at the top of this. Look at the top of the screen. That's supposed to be a radar. That is one of the worst radars we've ever seen. We're supposed to be represented by the plus at the top of the screen, and the enemies are flickering pixels, barely distinguished flickering pixels. That's not the worst radar. We've seen really bad ones, but that radar is so bad, you might as well not have a radar at all. Look, it's really not even telling me what's coming up. It didn't tell me that enemy. It's one of the most unhelpful radars we've ever seen for a video game up to this point. Oh man, yes, that's pretty much it, Marshall. It's Defender with no objective. So we call these shoot 'em up, scrolling shoot 'em ups. This is the 186th scrolling shoot 'em up that we've seen on Chronologically Gaming since the beginning of time. This is the 24th scrolling shoot 'em up that we've seen across all home consoles. So to put in perspective, you look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is unplayable. I wouldn't even want to play this game. There's only 24 scrolling shoot 'em ups on all home consoles that we've seen so far. And this is the third time we've seen a scrolling shoot 'em up on this console, the Arcadia 2001, after Space Raiders and Red Clash. And that's really what this looks like. Take a look at Space Raiders on the Arcadia, and it's really similar to this. Almost like they took the same game and just modified a few things and released it in other regions. So it might be the same game as Space Raiders. It actually feels like it's lacking some of the stuff we've seen from Space Raiders up to this point. Red Clash was a lot more impressive. It was vertically scrolling. This one's 2D scrolling horizontally, and it is, at this point, I know you see it and you think of Defender. We've seen 6 games that are official Defender games on Chronologically Gaming. In the arcade, we have the Eugene Jarvis February 1981 Defender that's been released. We saw the sequel Stargate in the arcade. On the Atari 2600, the very well done Defender is available. The Intex Adventure Vision has Defender, a very obscure home console. Then the Atari 5200 has Defender, and the Atari Home Computer has Defender. Up to this point, we've played games like this, like Defender, or variants of Defender. This marks the 43rd Defender variant, and this time I used the word Defender variant really loose, because we're really not playing true Defender. No one's being rescued. There's no mutoids. It's just how long can you stay alive and rack up a high score. And the single player just feels like it's a lonely experience. Some of the really good Defender variants we've seen up to this point are things like Mayday. Not true Defender or official Defender. We saw Mayday in the arcade. Victory is another example. Funky Fish is a cool one that we've seen in the arcade. Rescue is in the arcade. At this point, this is only the 7th variant of Defender that we've seen across all home consoles. So there is the official Defender on the consoles that I've already mentioned, but there's only 7 clones or copies of Defender that we've seen across all home consoles. This one is the 7th. Some other good ones that you could play on home consoles are like Chopper Command on the Atari 2600, Cosmic Raiders on the Bally Astrocade. Right now, in December 1982, you could be playing Planet Defender on the Creativision home console. There's also Star Wars that's out by Parker Brothers on the Atari 2600. Megaforce is a really good one, again, on the Atari 2600. Man, the difficulty is really unfair, too. A lot more unfair than Space Raiders. And that's the other one we've seen. Space Raiders is another Defender-like game that we saw on the Arcadia home console. Some other games we've seen that scroll horizontally like this, but aren't true Defender games, are games like Space Jockey, Planet Patrol, and Bermuda Triangle, which I actually would prefer Bermuda Triangle over this. It's so tricky. I want to reset again because part of me is looking at the radar, but the radar is not helping. No way. There's way too much to be desired for this one. Some of the other scrolling we've seen on other home consoles that make this look like trash is Zaxxon. Isometric view scrolling on the ColecoVision. We've also seen Zaxxon on the Atari 2600, but that Zaxxon was a behind view scrolling. And then more recently we saw vertically scrolling River Raid. Exceptional River Raid is available to be playing right now. And after playing River Raid, this one is not doing any favors. It does have the 2 different difficulty level or options, and it does have an arcade gameplay loop if you want to go for the high score. And I didn't mention the turbo fire. If you hold down the fire button, you do have that too, but it still isn't worth any merits. Considering the other games you could play on other home consoles, this one's the same size cartridge as the last one we saw. So this is 4 kilobytes, 4 kilopower. All right, that's it. That's all I can muster. That's Space Squadron. I was really hopeful. Every time we get to the Arcadia 2001, I want to be wowed. I want it to do something cool and fun, and it really does not deliver. So I'd say this one, I'm looking more 2 stars in the 2-star range, maybe 2.5 stars, because it has the high score element. Looking over the chat, yes, Brad, this one is rough. Yes, voice is going out. Ah la la la. Probably from the high-pitched stream. Marshall saying 2.5 stars. James is 1.5. They had the sound. Brian saying 2. I'm actually going to go 2 stars for this. It's kind of like the last game we just saw. I would have given it 2 stars, but because of the element that made it like a mission, we're actually assembling something which is unique. This one's not unique. This one's more generic. So I'm going to go 2 stars for Space Squadron. All right, after that game, what is our very next video game release? Watch what you can do on your Apple II. This is Space Vikings. So from home consoles, we're now in home computer territory. Let's take a look at Space Vikings. This game is only available on the Apple II. It marks the 442nd game we've seen on all Apple II systems. That's a lot of video games. Looking at the front, I'm really excited to show another game by Sublogic. And it says it requires joysticks and paddles. That's pretty cool. A lot of times we only see keyboard only. This marks the 10th time we've seen Sublogic on the show. They've brought us games like A2FS1 Flight Simulator that eventually becomes Microsoft Flight Simulator that we've already seen. They also did Night Mission Pinball and Zendar, just to name a few. The front of the box is like the other Sublogic boxes. All it does is have a screenshot. If you know Sublogic, you're going to get into something amazing. But look at the screenshot. They're showing the 3D wireframe graphics and a 3D like planet in the background. Amazing. The back of the box doesn't really tell you anything about the game at all. It's just about Sublogic's media policy. Here's the ad you would have seen in magazines at the time for Space Vikings. It's adventure on a grand scale. A science fiction adventure in deep space. And it shows, again, screenshots, and the screenshots are amazing. If you think up to this point, the stuff we've seen on home computers, I'm amazed that it's only December 1982. And this is another one of those titles that's going to blow your mind. Or put you to sleep, depending on what kind of gamer you are. There's the 5 1/4 floppy disk we have to play Space Vikings on our Apple II. And some examples of screenshots. You can see what they're trying to go for. And get ready. This will blow your socks off. But first, here is the very rare scan of the manual for Space Vikings. Kind of really hard to come by. And this is kind of telling you what we're about to get into. This is a graphic 3D tactical simulation of space combat in the distant future. That's right, you heard it correctly. And this is the first time we've ever seen Mitchell Robbins on the show. Way to go, Mitchell. He did an amazing job with this, or at least, how in the world is it December 1982 and we're going to play a 3-dimensional game? Are you kidding me? All right, so I'll go through the introduction and won't read the manual in its entirety, but Space Vikings is a 3-dimensional combat simulation that combines much of real-time excitement and visual effects of an arcade game with the detail and tactical considerations of popular simulation games. That's right. Can you believe we're going to be playing? It doesn't even sound real. This sounds like it's a lot of marketing, fabricating something, but it's not going to be able to deliver, honestly, because we've seen a lot of games that have great ambition, but they just can't deliver. The object of this game, or actually, you're the commander of a Federation starship in the game. You begin approaching the home planet and the star system Sol. This will be your primary base of operations throughout the game. So you can do different things like repairing your ship, enlisting troops, selling loot gathered from other planets, buying support weaponry, and so forth. The object of this game is to take your ship and Viking troops to each star system, raid the system's planet, and make it surrender to you. If the planet has an orbiting defense ship, you'll want to engage this ship in battle before dispatching your troops in order to increase your chances of success. This game is completed when you've successfully went to all 20 star systems and they've all been brought under your control. If you get blown up, run out of energy, or become badly damaged, you cannot return to your base for repairs, then you've lost and the game is over. So that description I just gave you is kind of meager, but this game is massive. This is a very big ambition for a video game that, at least up to this point, to have something that claims it's going to do what we're about to see doesn't even make sense, to tell you the truth. It should come as no surprise. This is single player only. There is no multiplayer options for this. This is controlled with the joystick and paddle, or at least either one, not at the same time. So you can pick one of the others, and the joystick control is like flying an airplane. It's space combat, or simulated space combat. When the game begins, you're piloting a starship, and it has a first-person view. It has a instrument panel, which I'll zoom into here, at least show a little bit of it. And then we have a speed indicator for speed controls. You need to know what all the commands are, so you'll be looking at this manual. This is the kind of game that you would have looked at the manual when you bought the game, because you would be lost just popping in to play the game. This means the scope of this game is a little beyond this channel. On Chronologically Gaming, most of the games that we've played since the beginning of all time, you can just pop in and within a few seconds, you figure it out. This is one of those titles that you could be playing for weeks, even months, and still not get it all. That's how big this is. So I will not be doing this game justice just by giving you your first experience with this. It will not work. So over on the left side, they're explaining all the different controls and what you can do in the game. So I'll be struggling to keep up as we show a few things off of the game. It shows the master computer command mode. What's surprising, though, is the manual isn't too long. We've played other strategy games and simulation games where the manual is so long that we don't even get a chance to go through the whole thing. But this one's fairly short. It shows the computer information, your galaxy map, ship status, enlisting ground forces, and then has the tactical considerations right here above my head, coordinating different star systems and how to move to a different location. And then it has lore. Everybody loves lore. It's the historical background of space Vikings. And you can read that one at your leisure. Look at this. They have information of why you're doing this. You need to have lore so you understand your motivation. Otherwise, what's the point? But very glad we got this scan dumped online. And this is a great way if you wanted to play it yourself. I mean, longer than we're going to be playing on the show. All right, so let's pop in the 5 1/4 floppy disk and play some Space Vikings. Mitchell Robbins, published by Sublogic at the beginning of December 1982. I'm ready. And like you can see here, you can save your game and load it up again. We're going to go with a new game. I'm not loading anything that's been saved previously. So this one is already impressive based on what we saw in the manual. And while this game was booting up, it would take a little bit longer if it really was December 1982. You'd be looking at the manual. You'd be reading and planning. And then even your first time to ever play the game, you wouldn't get it all. This would take several replays. This is already a very impressive opening splash right here. I got my analog joystick plugged in, ready. Yeah, Palpuck, Space Leaf Erickson. We're going all over. All right, the first thing you should note is the memory requirements. You have to have quite a lot of memory for your Apple II to play, and it also depends on which system. I'm currently playing on an Apple IIe, which is available right now, but mine's an enhanced version of the E, which stood for enhanced, so it's a enhanced Apple II. So what you're seeing here is real time. This is the planet Sol. That is the starship, the command ship that's orbiting Sol. Right now, if I want to fly, I can move my joystick. If I can get, or I think it's waiting for orbit. There we go. Yep. I can move it and you can see the frame rate is, I don't even think that's 1 frame a second. I think we're in the sub frames. I think this is 1 frame every 5 seconds. But I will attest that it is responding. I am able to move the joystick and eventually, yes, it does show us what's happening on the screen. I am turning to the right, but this is attempting to do 3-dimensional graphics for space combat, first-person perspective, and we've seen faster games up to this point. This is just trying to push way above its weight, because games like Space Raiders have already done things like this, but they never were attempting actual 3D graphics. This is incredible. 3 seconds. Yeah, there we go. Every 3 seconds, we get 1 frame. So it's very different than people that complain, oh, this isn't a 60 frames per second game. No. I will tell you, though, even though this is very, very slow, I am enthralled. I'm amazed. It reminds me of when we played 3D simulation golf on the FM7, Fujitsu FM7 home computer. It was a really slow golf game because every screen was drawing in the 3D graphics. But it still was really amazing that it was doing it, that you could have this at home and it's not some mainframe you're having to play on. All right, so anyway, let's try to actually do stuff in the game. So we have different speeds. Let's slow us down to 1. You can do speeds up to 1 through 4. I can also do autopilot. If I do A, you can see I turned autopilot on. The instrument panel is responding, I think, a little faster than the main screen. Whenever I try to do things like if I do shield, it turns on. No, it is. Okay, never mind. The shield I pushed and we had to wait 3 seconds, and then the shield turned on. And then we can engage weapons. Let's see if we can fire and see what the laser looks like. I'm off. I want to get the planet in view, though. Let's see if we can turn around. The point of your first time at Sol is to dock, and then gather the supplies you need and begin your mission to engage all the planets. You're basically going to turn Sol into your home base. Can I turn? I'll just keep turning. You look at the bottom left, and it kind of tells you your X, Y, and Z coordinates. You're vertical in your turn, but yeah, it's very, very slow. Right now, it just looks like we're looking at interface. But for basic controls of the game, you have battle stations, you have shields, you have autopilot, you have weapons, you have your radar, you have the command mode, you have hyperdrive, and before you do hyperdrive, you actually have to look at the map to see where everything is to move to the next screen. I'm trying to turn around, but it's taking a very long time. Oh, I think I sped up too fast. That's why. Let's go back to 1. My speed's going too quick. Or maybe we're too far away from Sol right now. And great question, Pal Puck. We're so far away from the release of Doom that I'm going to just pretend I have no idea what you're talking about. We played Countdown to Doom, but if it really was Doom, yes, I would say this is still acceptable. I'd play Doom at this speed. So this is the very first video game that is a vehicle simulation, a space combat, and trading simulator. It also has strategy elements involved. Essentially, the game that you're looking at right now is pre-Elite. If you're familiar with the game Elite, we have not seen it yet. It has not been released. This game is that kind of level of complexity as Elite, but it's before Elite even comes out. At this point, we've played over 70 games that play like Star Trek, the old mainframe Star Trek strategy game. This game does not play like Star Trek at all. At this point, we played over 15 games that play like Star Raiders. And this game doesn't really play like Star Raiders at all. It's like a class above. It's trying to do things different. And some of the other games we've seen on all systems up to this point have been games like Sands of Mars that have some elements of those two examples, but then they try to do things a little different and do more. I have no idea where I am. I'm like in the middle of space and trying to turn around, but it's still, I'm holding to turn. And I guess that's why they start you with the planet in view with the battle station, because it kind of gives you some frame of reference. But right now, let's try going the opposite direction. Let me slow my speed down. No, it's pretty slow already. Oh, I see. You got to go that way. Yeah, I think I shot myself into deep space. That's why I'm just flying in blackness right now, which most likely would be your first experience with Space Vikings. Another example of games that we've seen that are trying to do something more or different is Shadowhawk 1, which is not exactly like Star Raiders either. We've also seen games that are very, very ambitious, like the Galactic Saga series of games, or the game Galaxy by Avalon Hill. That was a lot of text, though. This one's trying to do something graphical. Another one that we saw on the Coco was Color Space Traders. So there are examples of games that aren't quite like Star Trek, or not quite like Star Raiders, and they try to do a few things different. This one is trying to do the biggest. Let's make an open world, and let's make it so you can fly a ship to different planets and star systems, and then try to put them under your control, involving resources, strategy, and even having the space combat simulation. It is incredible. This is amazing that I started the game. I even did some test runs. my test runs playing it were interesting because like this live experience where you're just seeing a UI, I was still interested on how to make it work, like practicing using my joystick to fly the ship, practicing with the controls. But it takes so much to get used to. It is not a game that you can just pop in and play for a few seconds like all the other arcade games we've seen. It's way above anything else at this point. Whenever we eventually do see Elite, that's going to be released first, I believe, on the BBC Micro. It's going to be the same thing. Elite is going to be a game that we won't be able to just sit down and play for a few seconds. That's what it feels like. We need to go to. Can we go to hyperspace? If I try it now, what happens? I don't think it'll work because the lag I'm seeing, I'm also experiencing whenever I do commands. I have to hold down the key to make a command work. All right, so it does have a lot of stuff going for it. We have a crosshair to when we enable our weapons. Can I turn them on? Missiles? Yep. Does it work? Oh gosh, it's so... There you go. There's my photon torpedoes. It shows power, and if I do battle stations, I can turn those on. And also, you can send troops down to planets. The game is also played in real time compared to other turn-based games we've seen so far. It does have menu structures besides what you're seeing here to issue commands. It's obviously inspired by Star Wars. It's amazing that this is controlled with a joystick or with paddles if you want to. It's not keyboard controlled, and it's attempting 3D wireframe graphics. At this point, one of the most impressive games we've seen graphically on the Apple II was games like Way Out or Zenith that was done by Nasir Gabelli Software. That's some of the best we've seen at this point. This one looks that way, but those other examples I gave you were running faster. They were a little smoother than this one. But still, you would find a lot of enjoyment with this game because of how ambitious it is. It's just amazing. And I understand, Marshall, it's very hard to rate. And everyone that's here for the live show, most gamers that attend the live show are here for the arcade games because that's the majority of the games we've seen up to this point in 1982. There is a few strategy games, of course, that are out there and other simulation style games, but this is one of those levels that's the small percentage of the tier of people that want to play something that's beyond most what people would consider a video game right now. It is insane. And with that, I'm going to have to give Space Raiders a lot higher rating than most of the other games we've seen on home computers because it's the very first video game that is combining space trading, space combat, and it just has so much going for it and so much they pushed into it that I couldn't recommend it more. It's another excellent title by Sublogic. James is saying 3 stars of all the games you can see so far. I'm actually, because of the number of things that it has compared that make this better than something like the Galactic Saga series or Galaxy by Avalon Hill or Color Space Traders, I'm going to go 4 stars. I won't go as high as 5 because the learning curve is way up there. Charlie's with me with 4, and Brad, it's not his cup of tea. 2.5 stars for Space Vikings. All right, from that realm of the galaxy, let's see where we're going next with our next video game release. Oh, there we go. GSE Stream throwing out 5 stars. Love it. Our next video game brings us back to the Vectrex at home, the best home console. This is Space Wars. I think with a name like Space Wars, it's so generic. It's really something we should have seen before, and we have. Space Wars we saw originally in the arcades November 1977, and this in the arcades was the very first vector-based video game ever, unless you count Galaxy game from 1971. Some people say it uses the same technology as a vector-based game. So this game marks the 11th time we've seen a Vectrex game. After Mindstorm, Armor Attack, Berserk, Blitz Action Football, Clean Sweep, Cosmic Chasm, Hyper Chase, Ripoff, Scramble, and Solar Quest. All that's available to play right now on your Vectrex. This one, the scans, I couldn't find really superb scans of the front of the box, but you kind of get the idea. It follows the same pattern we've seen with the other Vectrex games. Flip it over in the back. It has all the thrills of the real arcade version. This is the first official port of Space Wars that you could play at home. Very nice, with some great screenshots too. What other artwork do we have for Space Wars? We got the Milton Bradley version, if you got that one instead of the GCE version. Either company. And there's the Vectrex in all its glory with controller, analog joystick. It comes with its own 6-inch CRT television. Not really a true CRT. It's a vector television. So you don't need to borrow the parents' television. They can watch TV and you can play the Vectrex. There's the example of the cartridge for Space Wars. I love it. And that overlay. Don't forget the overlay too. Space Wars did not have a scan of the manual online. I looked and tried to find as many as I could, so there's a few things that were missing or hard to come by for Space Wars. Very surprising, though. It shows the setup right here. As a one-player game, Space Wars is designed to be played with a built-in control panel. You can play a two-player simultaneous if you have the joystick plugged in. The joystick rotates your destroyer. Pushing the right rotates clockwise or counterclockwise. You have a hyperspace button that mysteriously moves your destroyer to a new location. You have the thrust button that moves your destroyer forward, and the fire button that shoots crippling lasers at your opponent. The way you play this game is it's a 1- or 2-player game. If you play a 1-player game, you play against the computer. If you play a 2-player game, you play against someone else, what we refer to as dual shooters. You can select 7 different gameplay options. Each option determines the ship's speed, bomb speed, as well as the sun's gravity. And the game and skill levels are displayed here. When you start the game, you choose how many players are going to play, and then Space Wars is a battle between 2 opposing spaceships in a hostile space field. Each round begins with your spaceship appearing on the right side of the screen and your opponent on the left. In a 2-player game, the right control panel manipulates the right ship and the left control panel manipulates the left ship. Steer your ship, thrust forward, use your joystick, and fire lasers. Every time you blow them up, you get a point. Player 2 allows you to move mysteriously on the screen to avoid being hit. Use it cautiously. It might push you in an even more difficult predicament. The sun is found at the center and can be deadly if you collide with it. Be especially aware of its gravity forces. I feel like this manual is a little bit like describing what we saw in the 70s, you know, the original Space War ripoffs in 1971. So in one regard, I can see it as antiquated, but then another way I see this is awesome that we're getting to play something that's at home, that's an older generation of gaming. Each new ship has a fixed amount of fuel and laser strength. Once your ship is destroyed, the score is shown and fanfare is played. It also says that each ship has multiple has strengths, like you have a number of shots before you go down, which is kind of cool. And it explains how to restart the game. So it didn't get the actual scan, but we kind of understand how the game is going to be played. We got the GC version or the Milton Bradley version. Let's pop in Space Wars in our Vectrex in the beginning of December 1982. This one was ported by GCE. Later, it'll be done by Milton Bradley. And this port was done by Cinematronics. I don't know if they did it themselves in-house or not, but the Cinematronics is not new to the show. This is the 19th time we've seen Cinematronics be involved with any video game up to this point. They've done things in the arcades like Tail Gunner, Star Castle, Boxing Bugs, War of the Worlds, and Zizix. This is the 4th time we've seen Cinematronics at home, after Armor Attack, Ripoff, and Solar Quest on the Vectrex. So the game's going through, I think they already started me on the 1-player game. I'm just getting blown up because I didn't push anything. If you look at the title opening screen, it'll have the option between 1 player or 2 players to jump in. But you can do, which is kind of cool, the arcade version only allowed 2 people to play at the same time. You had to have a human player, but this one you don't. You can play, like you can see, the computer is destroying me. You have a computer to play against, which is already a nice touch. Look at this. And there's pieces of the ship that blow up. That's so cool. The computer is destroying me 6-0. Every time that you finish a point, you can see it blows off chunks of the ship. So I'm in control of what really looks like the Starship Enterprise, and the computer is controlling what really looks like the ship from Asteroids. But to be fair, this game was released in the arcades way before Asteroids. This is Asteroids' father, or grandfather, depending on how you look at it. So playing this game right now, most people would think Asteroids, even though it's like we're playing history, a video game history. So I love that. It's pretty cool. and it's bringing a few features home that are nice, that are different than the arcades. Yeah, you couldn't play against the computer in the arcade, and so I would call this an enhanced port based on the arcade version. You're getting more from this version than the arcade version. All right, so press Nikki to start. Let's try this again. All right, so I got my thrust. You can see I'm moving around my ship. It has the wrap on the screen. I have my fire. There's me firing some shots. The control is very, very similar to the other multi-directional shooters we've seen up to this point. So I got 1 point on my side. This marks the 163rd multi-directional shooter that we've seen on Chronologically Gaming on all systems. This is the 26th multi-directional shooter we've seen on all home consoles up to this point. And look at this, we ran out of power. I think we ran out of time. That's too funny. This is the 6th time we've seen any multi-directional shooter on the Vectrex, with other games like Berserk, Mindstorm, Cosmic Chasm, Ripoff, and Solar Quest. As you can see, we have the overlay that's adding some color a little bit, maybe to the sun on the screen. You don't have to use the overlay, but I highly recommend it. This marks the 40th time we've played any video game with vector graphics. There's been 30 that we've seen in the arcade, and the rest have been on the Vectrex. Am I really at a stalemate? Because I can turn the ship, but it won't let me fire or move any of the other buttons. That's awesome. I'm not sure. Yeah, because I can do. I'm trying hyper thrust fire, and both me and the computer can rotate. We have to wait for an asteroid to blow us up. That's too funny. I've never seen it go in a stalemate like that. The other button I have is the hyperspace button, which is similar to Asteroids Deluxe. That's cool. Did we both blow up? I wonder who got the points for that. There's the hyperspace warp. It just warps to a random another location after that. Some of the other really good vector-based games you can be playing now in the arcades are things like Black Widow, Zektor, Gravitar, TaxScan, Space Duel, Boxing Bugs, Eliminator, Space Fury, and Tempest. Color vector-based graphics is what we've seen in the arcades. This system does not have color. Vectrex is just black and white with the overlays giving it some color. So this is the 17th time we've seen a video game ripping off Space War, the classic PDP mainframe Space War. On home consoles, this is only the 3rd video game we've seen ripping off Space War, like having a sun in the middle, maybe some gravity. The other one was Space War on the Atari 2600, and then just recently Solar Quest is another variant. So you could call it an old idea to rip off Space War, but you gotta admit, it's not a whole lot out there that are actually trying to rip it off. I'm actually trying to feel the gravity. It plays fairly similar to what we saw in the arcades. See how it rips off parts of the ship? That was not in the arcades. You couldn't rip off part of the ship, so they added that for this home version. Shrapnel can come off the ship. Look at my... I've lost every part of my ship, and all I can do is rotate. That's awesome. So this is great. I would find a lot of enjoyment playing this, and maybe it's because I have a soft spot for the Vectrex. GSE Stream's throwing out 4 stars of all the games you can play across all home consoles. Right now, what would you say you would give Space Wars on the Vectrex? I'm only playing the 1-player mode. You can also play the 2-player mode. I think I have to do a reset, though, for it. Let's reset and show you what 2 players is like. Wow, mostly 4s coming out from the chat tonight. We got James saying 4, Brad 4, Charlie 4, Marshall 4. I'm with you. Space Wars on the Vectrex earns a 4-star rating for both being a technical marvel and a piece of gaming history you can hold in your hands. As an enhanced port of the original arcade, it's not only captured the essence of the first ever vector-based video game, it expands upon it. The addition of a single-player mode against the computer made it more accessible than its arcade counterpart, giving the player the thrill of deep space dogfighting anytime they wanted. And in 1982, owning Space Wars wasn't just about having another shooter, it was like owning a slice of video game history, and that's why I'm actually going to contest. I see Brian saying 3.5 to 4. Very nice. I'm going to go with the majority and say 4 stars as well. Of all the games you could play across all home consoles, Space Wars is still fun. It's classic too, and we're all about that on Chronologically Gaming. All right, that's where we got to put all the video game playing on pause. Thanks again, everyone that's here live in December 1982. This is a live show. I do follow a little bit of a script, but we're going game by game by game in order of release, and we want to see every single video game. And so I really appreciate everyone that's here. I also want to give a shout out to everyone that's joined our Patreon to help support this show. Chronologically Gaming is just a hobby. We're just having fun seeing every video game in order of release and seeing the evolution of video games and the history of video games. Next time on Chronologically Gaming, Spiders on home consoles, a new M Network game for the Atari 2600, and Star Trek in the arcade, and maybe on the Vectrex. That's it for today, and like I always say, the worlds they are creating seem to have no boundaries. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and be a Chronologically Gaming influencer, rating the games as we play them. This video wouldn't be possible without Launchbox, RetroArch, and Main. Tell all your friends there's some crazy guy named Chronologically Gaming trying to play every video game. We have links down below that give more information on the games we played this episode, as well as our Discord and Patreon. There's a link called All the Games We Have Played. If you go there, it's a list of everything, and you can click right to the game you want to see. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We are perpetually retro, and we will catch you next time.